So we finally finished the GTO, and we brought it out to the Hot Rod Power Tour stop in Springfield, Missouri, and bumped into a couple of newfound friends of mine from Mast Motorsports, and you'll recognize the name. They're the guys who did the ECM and the electronic fuel injection conversion and gauges that we used in the GTO. And with me now is Sean Lyde from Mast and Josh Tutt, and you guys brought out another running driving example of what you guys do. What's the truck?
Well, it's a 68 short wide with our L92 HO and a 6L90 transmission.
Okay, so to break the numbers game down, the L92, it's another variable valve timing motor.
Yes.
6.2 liter.
Yes.
And you're also running the GM 6-speed automatic that we tried to run that we couldn't fit in the car.
Yes, yeah. we actually fitted in here with a four-wheel drive floor pan, and it fit quite nicely, and it's running off our controller. So
when I look at this, it looks like a brand new GM install under the hood.
it looks like it should go there, doesn't it? It's quite nice. The fuel mileage is right around 17, 18, and it's been real nice on the power tour.
I mean, that's insane. Josh, how difficult was this?
And it's really, really easy to do. You know, if you're just doing an ECM package, you basically have to get fuel pressure to it. You can use one of our fuel systems, and besides that, you basically have to hook up the ignition switch. Run your battery cable to your starter, and that's where we pick up power and make sure it's grounded good, and you're pretty much ready to go. You can only plug the harness in one way, so it's pretty hard to screw it up.
Well, and, you know, we're living proof because we screw up everything. But what we notice is, you're right, every connector only fits a certain way. You can only plug everything in the right way. But that 6L90 is a pretty high-tech piece, and there's been a lot of buzz. The transmission is very cool because if you bought like a new Escalade or a Yukon or one of the big trucks, it's constantly shifting and keeping the RPM happy for good fuel economy and power. But right now, I don't think there's much tunability with this trans. Am I right?
Right. We haven't even explored that avenue yet. We're hoping to investigate some of the flashing type softwares to see if we can tune it, and we may try to trick it and see if we can get a Corvette calibration on it and see what that does. Our first order of business was just to get it running, and we're very pleased that we did get it running.
So getting back to how the truck drives, without having to do a major reflash of the transmission, you guys kind of mated the rest of the drive line to basically make the transmission think it's still in its stock home.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it drives like, you know, a late model, a lot like an Escalade or, you know, going down the highway.
So what's cool about that is if somebody wanted to try this swap, if they got the gear ratio right and it's hooked into the motor and it's connected properly, do they really have to do much to it?
Yeah, there's a few variables that if you get them right on your build, then the transmission will work for you. You don't really have to worry about it. So
what's the advantage? I mean, what do you gain by doing this swap?
Well, with the L92, we're making 410 foot-pounds at 2,500 RPM, and the only way you can do that is with variable valve timing, and it carries the power out to 7, and it's flat if you look at the dyno plot. And then with the short first gear in the 6L90, it's like a 4.06 first gear or something. Yeah, and so we geared the truck to a 307, and it's turning like 1,800 RPM going down the highway, so that's where we're getting banging fuel mileage with 525 horsepower.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Plus, the motor's small and it's aluminum.
Yeah, and it keeps the car light. So
now, I noticed you use the truck accessory and the truck intake manifold. Those are also kind of hot topics with the L92 swaps.
Yeah, you can use the truck intake. It works fine in this swap, and you guys made it work with the GTO. Or you can use we've got a car manifold version, and there's some solutions you have to do to run a variable valve L92 with a car manifold, and we've got them sorted out. And if you have a hood clearance problem, you just come to us, and we got it.
So you guys are more than just selling the hardware, because you also retail the crate motors. And tell me about your software and your controller. I mean, it's very, very sophisticated stuff, but yet again, it's still easy to use.
Right. And basically what you're getting is not a GM controller, so you don't have to work around stuff. Our knock sensors still work perfectly with the stroker crank. With whatever you want to do, you can actually tune your knock sensors to work right. Roller rockers, whatever. We have stuff called Octane Learn. It'll actually adjust the spark table depending on what kind of fuel you have in it. You can fill it up with 87, it'll have a kind of a lower spark table. We fill it up with 93, it'll figure it out, and it'll bump it up and be making a little bit more power.
So it has some of the magic of the GM box,
yeah.
But you don't have to deprogram the anti-theft key, right? And some of the other nonsense that is running a new car that you don't have in your car.
Right, exactly. And then I think a lot of the other benefit is getting just a harness that's purpose-built for a standalone application. You know, we still have all of the air conditioner controls where we cut the AC compressor off under certain situations. We have electric fan controls, you know, fuel pump controls. It'll prime up when you turn the ignition on, just like the factory. So I think that's one major advantage, just to not have to hassle with cutting up a GM harness.
Tell me about the gauge panel. I noticed you guys used, again, your CAN networked gauges. Tell me how those work and how it looks.
It turned out great in ours. It's a 5 or 6 wire hookup, depending on what you're doing. You can run pretty much any speed signal to it, and you can pretty much use the master gauge. It's one big master gauge that has a screen in it, and then it's a plug-and-play satellite gauge deal, and all these work with the 5 wires. And that screen, you can scroll through it, and I think you can read diagnostic trouble codes, road speed, odometer, fuel level, battery voltage, throttle position, oil pressure, engine coolant temperature, RPM, manifold temp, yeah. And so it's essentially a diagnostic tool within your gauges, and all that runs over the CAN network, and that's how we're not running cinders all over this engine. We've got it all coming through the ECM, and it's all in the wiring loom.
Yeah, and it also looks right.
Yeah. We actually took the glove box panel off of the other side. We had an extra, and did a sex up job on it and made it look good, and it turned out quite nice.
Well, it looks killer. The other thing that I thought was second to none was you guys really helped us out on the phone putting our car together. Customer service is, in a lot of ways, kind of a thing of the past, but you guys really stepped up and helped us out. So the truck looks killer. Thank you for your help.
Appreciate it.
I'm guaranteeing we're going to do more stuff in the future.
Awesome.
And when we get done, give me a report on your final average fuel economy on this thing. I see you were running, 17 something?
Yeah, I think it's 17.4 on the way up here.
Yeah, when gas is $4 a gallon, you can still drive your hot rod. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.